Hi, everyone. Welcome to ALD's newest series, Career Conversations. So last year, Alpha Lambda Delta updated our tagline to taking you from first year to career. And ALD Career Conversations looks to do that. It looks to explore the path between your first year of college and your first career, or your entire career. So we're grateful to have alumni like Kristen here to help us, and we have a lot of students on the call as well, so I'm really excited. I have some kind of standard questions I'll ask Kristen, but then at the end, if you have any questions, please turn on your mics, your cameras if you're comfortable, or drop some questions in the chat. But we'll get started with some introductions. My name is Trish. I'm the Director of Communications for Alpha Lambda Delta National Honor Society. I work in the national office. I do communications and events and stuff like that. So this is Kristin Shipley. She was inducted into ALD in 2015 at North Carolina A&T State University. She won a Joanne J. Trow Scholarship, which is for undergraduate study through the national office, and she earned her degree in public relations. She's working as a product marketing manager for YouTube. She lives in DC/New York, depending on where where she is with the pandemic. But on top of her career, she's interested in, passionate about diversity and technology, serves on the Leadership Advisory Council for the Ron Brown Scholars Program. So hi, Kristen, welcome.
Oh, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So we're going to start with a few kind of fun questions. If you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Ooh, probably hibachi and like salmon, egg rolls, and ice cream.
Oh, definitely ice cream. If you want an all expenses paid 7-day vacation when COVID disappears, where are you going?
Definitely going to a beach. So maybe Jamaica or Barbados or somewhere warm.
Last kind of fun question. What did you want to be when you were younger?
So when I was younger, when I was really young, I used to want to be a singer. And then when I was maybe like middle school, high school, I wanted to be a magazine editor.
Nice. So let's talk about ALD. So what role did ALD play in your undergrad experience? Were you involved? Did you join kind of just for the recognition? We find that membership kind of runs the gamut. What role did it play for you?
Yes. So initially, when I first joined, I feel like it was the recognition and like the excitement. I was in the honors program at A&T, and so a lot of my friends and I, we were all like very excited that we, were nominated to be a part of it. But then once two of my best friends actually served on the executive board, one served as president and the other one served as secretary. So when they got involved, I got more involved, and we did a lot of community service and professional development, which helped me throughout my time in college. And then, as you mentioned too, the scholarship also helped to fund my studies at A&T, which was really great.
So let's talk about your major and your academic experiences. So you said kind of in high school, you wanted to be a magazine editor, so that's communications-ish, right? So, how did you pick your major? What, did you have internships? Were you in kind of major-based clubs? What did you do?
Yes. So when I was in high school, I was really involved in our school newspaper and yearbook, doing like morning announcements and that sort of thing. So I always had a passion for communications and really enjoyed that. And so I feel like it was a really natural fit for me to decide to pursue journalism as my major. And then there are kind of 3 concentrations that they had at my school. So you could do more of like a traditional journal, I think it was like media journalism, where it was like more broadcast based. There was like a production communications track, and then there was also a public relations track. And of all of those, I really enjoyed PR and kind of getting to write a lot and like work with different brands, and that just all seemed really cool to me. And so I felt like as a journalism student too on campus, we had a lot of different projects where we had to go to different campus events and interview students and administrators and like cover and just like understand different aspects of what was going on campus. And so I wrote for the school newspaper my freshman and sophomore year. I also joined, we have an organization called the National Association of Black Journalists that I joined on campus. And I also was a PR intern for like other organizations on campus, like the National Society of Black Engineers, which a lot of my friends were in, and I wasn't an engineering student, but I was like, oh, like this seems really cool to be involved in, and maybe I can use my communication skills in that area. And then I was also involved in student government. And so all of these things kind of helped me to understand like what I liked and what I don't liked, and also helped me to develop some of my leadership skills and taught me like time management, and, you know, just being like a team player and all of that sort of stuff that's helped me in my career today.
Comm is a very broad major. There's sports communications, there's new communications and digital media. So, I liked the flexibility of that. I'm sure that you did as well. So can you talk a little bit about the path that you took from your first year? So you talked about the clubs that you were interested, that you were in, and some of the like internships that you had, but how did you get from that first year to that first job, and what did it look like?
Yes. So during my freshman year, I don't know how many of you all watched the show Scandal, but I loved Scandal. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to be the next Olivia Pope and like fix things and be like in DC on the ground. And so freshman year, I remember there were always different opportunities to volunteer. And I really think that volunteering is a great way to learn more about something you're interested in or just kind of get involved in the community. And so I remember there was someone on campus who was registering people to vote. And so I registered to vote. And then they also asked me if I would be interested in helping out in any political campaigns. And initially I was a little hesitant. I wasn't sure. I feel like I was a very eager freshman, like wanting to get involved in everything and like do a bunch of things. But I eventually said yes to volunteering for this congressional campaign. And I was really into photography at the time. So I did photography for some of their events and also helped like at the phone banks and like doing some of that stuff as well. And then when the Congresswoman won the congressional campaign, I got to intern in DC, in her office, mostly focusing on communications. And I did it through the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, which was also like, as part of the internship, they also had different like programming for us, and we got to learn things like how to write a bill, and we got to like debate in a mock Congress. And so after that internship, I think it was really interesting. I feel like I had a great experience there, but I realized like, I don't know if I want to be Olivia Pope anymore. It's very reactive. And there's obviously always a lot going on in government, and sometimes it just feels like things move very slow. And so I knew I wanted to stay in the communications, public relations field. So I looked for related internships, and through a program called Inroads, which I definitely would recommend, I found out about an internship at Facebook for business related roles. And so I remember seeing an email that like, oh, Facebook has this internship program. And I was like, I mean, at the time I was like, I use Facebook, like, I don't know, maybe I'll apply and like see what happens. And I remember getting called for the interview and being really excited that the interview was in California. It was my first time traveling to the West Coast, and the interviews went well. And I was offered a role on the Instagram consumer marketing team. And so I got to be there the summer that they launched stories, and I did like competitive app research on like other apps that were like doing similar things, to help them think about like the features and that sort of thing. And that's when I realized like wow, like there's a place for communications in tech, and like it's really needed and like a valuable skill. So that next summer, I applied to a marketing internship at Google. And I got a chance to work on the search growth marketing team and learned more about like the data driven side of marketing. And then from that internship, I converted into a full time position on the YouTube ads marketing team, where I've been for the last 2.5 years or so. So it all started from like a volunteer opportunity, honestly. And that's kind of how my career got started.
Yeah, and you hear that a lot, right? It's that one foot in the door that you need to kind of propel your career. And I think that's why colleges and professors push internships so much, because those connections are really important. And I just wanted to kind of loop back around. You talked about your internship with the government, or that was more political based, and how you did well, but realized like, not the best fit for me. And those experiences, I think, are equally as important as the ones that are, because it helps you kind of learn what you like and what you don't. And, it's very, you think, and then things shift, but it's good to have those experiences that you don't necessarily like or wouldn't pick again, to help you guide you forward. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
are, are there any professional organizations that you're a part of, or any certifications that you would recommend for these students?
Yeah, that's a great question. Certifications. I remember I did get certified. Well, when I found out about the Google internship, I got certified in AdWords, which is like, their advertising platform. And then another organization that I was a part of was the PRSSA, so the Public Relations Student Society of America. I was involved in that as an undergrad, and that was really helpful too, in terms of like connecting with people in my major, learning more about the field. I'm trying to think of other certifications. I can't really think of any other ones that I really had. I think as much as you can, like writing and having opportunities to speak and present and just like really sharpening some of those communication skills are always beneficial as well.
Absolutely. Um, so, so to me, YouTube seems like this huge, uh, you know, entity and accomplishment. And if you said, oh, you can get a job at YouTube, I'd say like, yeah, right. How do you even do that? So I guess that's the question, like, how do you jump into some of these really, really big companies that have great um opportunities for communications people, like a Google or a or an Amazon or a YouTube?
Yeah, so for me, it was through the internship program. And a lot of the companies do have like internship programs for undergrads. And then if not through through like the internship process, just like being aware of those opportunities do exist. Cause I think for a lot of students in my major, and even for me, like if you would have told me freshman year that I was going to be working at Google post college, I would have said like, Google doesn't hire, like they hire engineers, like they don't hire communications people. So I think the first step is honestly like knowing that there are opportunities there and then seeking them out and just going for it. And like as much as you can, taking like the experiences that you've had in other industries or across other different things and like aligning it to how that would be beneficial in your role there. So I think the first step is like just being aware and kind of being on the lookout for those types of opportunities.
What's one thing that you wish you would have done in your undergraduate career to better position yourself for a career in communications?
Yeah, I think one thing that I wish that I would have done more of or just kind of learned better is like more project management type of stuff. I think as communication students, we're often in like creatives and, we know how to do things and be creative and get things done. But I think more of that, more rigor around that project management, and like learning some of those different like tools to help with that, is one thing that I think would be helpful for me now.
And last question I have for you, what's your favorite thing about your current job? Like, what is it, a task? Is it a team of people? Like, what makes it worth going to every day?
Yeah, I think it's both the people that I work with, who I love and have really learned a lot from and like enjoyed working with, and then also the brand. Like YouTube, I mean, it touches so many people in a lot of different ways, and it's something I use on like a regular basis. And so like being able to kind of be behind the scenes of that and kind of see how that works and get to like work with different people on these really cool like high impact projects, is really fun, and that's what I love.
Mhm.
We used to have a lot of like creators come to the office and like musicians perform for like concerts and stuff, and so it was just like a really fun place to be because there's so many different pieces that are kind of part of this ecosystem, and so that's something that I really enjoy.
Nice. So let's give the students a chance to ask any questions that they may have. So if you're so brave or bold, turn your camera on and or microphone, or type a question in the chat and we can relay them from there. But what would you like to ask our in-house expert? First question, would you recommend obtaining a master's degree?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I feel like it depends on what you want to do and kind of what you want to specialize in, and if you feel like you need additional expertise in that field. As we kind of talked about earlier, I think communications is just very broad. And so, depending on what you want to do, I think it can be helpful in some instances. Like, I plan to go back to school at some point to get my MBA, to be able to like navigate more in the business space. But I don't think it's required to, land different opportunities, in the communications field. So I think it just depends on kind of what you want to do. I know a good friend of mine, who's a news anchor now. She studied journalism undergrad and then got her master's in like broadcast journalism specifically, and she found it to be really helpful. So I think it just depends, kind of what you want to do and where you want to be too. So another thing, like she knew that she wanted to work in New York, so she made sure that like the master's program that she went to was in New York, where she could kind of make those connections and really like learn, that market to be able to then go on and get that job. Yeah.
Are there any apps or websites, like when applying to jobs or like getting your name out there, that you would recommend more than others?
Yeah, I know. I think it's Glassdoor is a good one to like look at different careers. I'm trying to think other like general websites. I mean, each company that you're interested in, they also have like websites to apply through that way. I'm definitely also a big advocate of like different career prep type programs. So for example, like I mentioned Inroads, that was one that I signed up for while I was in college, and they helped to match me with like an internship. And another organization that I really recommend is Management Leadership for Tomorrow, also called MLT. And that's an organization that's really focused on like diverse representation and like career opportunities. So I find that programs like that, or any type of like career development programs that you can do as well, are always super helpful.
All right, thank you.
And just in case you didn't know, Alpha Lambda Delta has a partnership. We partnered with, it's a company called Scholars. Their website is hirescholars.com. But they help pair high achieving students like Alpha Lambda Delta members with jobs, first level jobs and internships. So you create like a profile on their app, and then you check like, okay, I'm communications, but I'm also interested in healthcare and consumer, whatever pieces. And then the companies can search for you and you can search for the companies. And again, it's for internships and jobs, and it's free. It's a free app, because of our partnership with Alpha, Lambda, Delta, and Scholars. So if you're interested in that, check it out on our website. It's nationalald.org/partners.
Yes. And so in addition to things like that too, a lot of times your school's like career services department can be really helpful too in identifying those opportunities. And we used to also have like career fairs at school as well, where you could go and meet different employers to chat about like internship opportunities and then like job opportunities upon graduation.
Great. I have another question here. Did you have any mentors? Do you now? How do I find them?
Yes. And mentors have been a big part, I feel like, of every stage of my career. I feel like when I was in college, I found mentors through like organizations that I was a part of, looking to like the juniors and seniors that were in those, and also through my work experiences. So finding people who have common interests and or who are involved in similar organizations, also at different like conferences and speaking engagements. I tried to, like, if people say, like, feel free to reach out to me, like, I typically was that person who reached out and was like, hey, just kind of introducing myself and just like connecting with them afterwards. And I feel like this has continued to help me in my career. So even now at YouTube, like when I first started, they had like a mentorship program essentially where they paired you, like as a new employee, they pair you with someone who's been there longer to just kind of help you navigate. And like through that mentor, I met, I asked them like, oh, who are some people that you would recommend that I meet or chat with? And he recommended people for me to chat with. And also going back to that, like following up with people after the conferences and that sort of thing. And I think what really has helped me in finding mentors and making those like long lasting connections is coming to them with specific questions or like specific asks or things that I hope to learn from them. And also offer myself as a resource in case they ever need anything as well. So it definitely feels more like a two-way street than me just kind of like, I guess, getting everything from them. Even though I find that people are always very willing to help, it's also nice too when you're able to help someone else out as well.
The advancement of social media and digital platforms, it can be hard to establish healthy boundaries and a work-life balance for the normal person. So talk about like, what's the work-life balance with communications? Is it possible? Is it a 9-to-5 thing? Is it, you're working all the time because YouTube's on all the time? What does the work-life balance look like?
Yeah, I think it's, as of lately, and especially with the pandemic, I think work-life balance has been even more of a focus because it's like now our homes have become our workplaces, and our workplace is home. So there's definitely been like a bigger emphasis around like creating those clear boundaries. I would say that my team is really good about work-life balance. I typically log on between like 9 and 9:30 and am typically off by, I'd say, between like 5 and 6, depending on like the day, which is, I'd say, pretty typical. I think, there are always special circumstances where you may have to work a little bit longer if there's something going on or there's a launch. But I think it's definitely possible to be able to have that balance. I think early on, I don't know, I think sometimes there's the pressure of work, which is like there, but I think also when you're early on, there's a lot of pressure that you put on yourself, just being so new and wanting to prove yourself and learn everything and establish yourself on the team. And so I think when you first start, sometimes it can feel a little bit overwhelming or like you're working more just to kind of get up to speed. But I think for the most part, like I would say I have pretty good work-life balance now.
Yay!
So First of all, I wanted to say I'm from North Carolina, so I was excited to hear that you went to A&T. Now I go to Meredith in Raleigh.
Awesome.
And then secondly, I'm a PR major and I don't really know what I want to do with it yet, but I was wondering like what's a big like general skill that you use the most?
Yes, that's a great question. And I feel like I had wanted to be a magazine editor initially, but then I was like, oh no, like people aren't reading magazines as much anymore. So I think PR is a great like general skill. Honestly, I think writing, like if you can write well and write like clearly and be able to like communicate ideas and not be afraid of that, I think that's like the key skill that translates across like whatever discipline that you go into. Because a lot of times what you'll find is one, like a lot of people don't like to write, or like they see it as very like daunting and like they don't want to do it. So like if you can do it and you're good at it, I think that's a skill that translates across the board. So yeah, that would be the one.
Thanks.
Mhm.
And how might students be able to build that skill, Kristen? Any suggestions?
Yeah, I think practice, practice, practice. Like any opportunities that you have to be able to practice that skill. So like I was involved in the school newspaper, and so there were stories that we had to write for that. I like started a blog and like would write different stuff. I also like the communications internship that I did. There was a lot of writing involved there. Like volunteer opportunities, when I would take on some of those, they would ask me to write different things. So just like finding those different opportunities and like ways to practice. And if you can't find them, then like creating them. So like just to get that practice, I think is always really helpful.
If you had one piece of advice for students that you wish you would have received, what would that be?
Yeah, let's see. One piece of advice that I wish that I would have received. I feel like people told me this, and like I think that sometimes this wavers for me, but just like being confident in yourself and in your abilities, and like taking chances, like not being afraid to take those chances and take those risks. I think that's something that I'm kind of constantly having to tell myself. In college, like I think it's a great thing to know, because then, when you feel confident, you feel more emboldened to like take those risks. And like take different chances and try different opportunities, which I think is super helpful. And I think a lot of times like we get in our own way sometimes, and like the only reason we're not doing something is because of ourselves. So just really like getting out of your own way and like really leaning into your skills and those different opportunities. And it's something that comes and goes. Like towards my senior year of college, like I definitely felt pretty confident and was like, yep, I can take all these risks. And then even now, sometimes I have to remind myself like, oh, okay, like I can still take risks. You kind of like have to keep reminding yourself of that as you move along. But that would be my biggest piece of advice.
Great advice, Kristen. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today. And thank you to all the students who came today and asked such great questions.